Last week, I uploaded a video which I found very interesting, and it was an apology that was being made to persons whose foreparents experienced slavery, and the acts of slavery were being meted out to some of them, because some of them experienced it in different forms, and therefore parents were victims of it. And interestingly, I saw today or read today where some reparations were being paid to the University of the West Indies, for slavery. And I noticed that it is something that is being talked about in the media a lot, and there's a lot of focus being made made to it at this time. And I would imagine, because last month there was it was the 4th of July was being celebrated, and um, there other countries in other countries, they are celebrating independence, and um, they're remembering their emancipation from slavery at this time. And there are a lot of different celebrations going on right now for for, for different countries, right across the globe. Um, Not just this country, but other Caribbean islands, and other other countries in South America as well. Now, I say this to say that we are focusing on correcting the maladies that took place back then. And we're also reflecting on the sacrifice that many of our forefathers made. Some of them lost their lives, and some of them suffered imprisonment for years, lifetime sentences for some, and a lot of a lot of suffering that went on, and a lot of advocacy took place during back then to buy back freedom, to regain freedom for people, to regain the ability for persons to be treated with respect and dignity, and not be exploited and treated in inhumane conditions. And not just the blacks, but even there were other countries that were marginalized as well, as a result of being part of, or being one of the countries that were being discovered by by Christopher Columbus back then. Now, I find it appalling that it is as if that the victims of slavery, or the persons who were probably not victims directly but indirectly, and the victims, I must say, because in some way or other, they the injustices that were meted out to their foreparents or has been passed down from generation to generation, and we are still experiencing the effects of slavery, the effects of being treated inhumanely. And I know right now that there are the same persons who were treated in this manner have now taken it upon themselves, um, and are now treating their own kind in this way, where persons are torturing another human being daily, but this time instead of using the whip that they had back then, they are using electronic devices to do so remotely, to inflict torture and to inflict pain on on an innocent human being without a cause. And instead of raping, because back then women were being raped daily, and instead of physically raping a woman, they are now using the electronic devices to rape and molest a woman remotely with these electronic devices. So the same activities that were back then, the same activities are being perpetrated right now. It is still going on right now, this very day, that reparations are being paid for slavery. Slavery is still being perpetrated against another human being. Where it is another human being is being denied her rights, being denied her freedom to make decisions for her life, and people are imposing their will upon another person at this very moment, this very day, and treating another human being as if they are a chattel, as if they belong to somebody else, as if they are owned by somebody else. This very day, the same thing that used to happen back then, where they used to buy slaves and own them, and the rights, their rights were removed from them, where they did not have a say in what happened to them. It was the owners, the slave owners, who made decisions for them and sold them and did to them and sold them and did to them as they wish. And so they were being transported to places they weren't even aware of, and wasn't even contacted, nor was any discussion had with them whether or not they wanted to be sold to a particular slave owner. They had no choice in the matter. In the same way that attempts are being made to impose on a human being somebody else's wish, somebody else's desire for them, without having discussion with that person. And despite the person's objection, saying that they do not want to be a part of it, they do not want this in their lives, they are imposing this upon them, and stating that the person has no say in the matter. This is slavery. This is what the same thing that was happening back then. The same way that Christopher Columbus, when he needed help, when he went to these countries that he discovered and he needed help, and he sent back to England to ask the Queen to send him some persons to assist him in these countries that he discovered, to whatever he was doing, with claiming he was doing to the persons there. I guess with his exploitation exploits. And the queen would send him prisoners, because that's how she just opened all the prison doors, and just send all the prisoners over to him. And these prisoners would use the people as sports. and the sports that they conducted was inflicting the persons with inflicting them with pain and doing all manner of evil against them in the form and call in the form of sports, and that was how they entertained themselves, by using people and destroying other people's lives. It's the same thing. I heard that this thing is a game, and it's the same thing that is happening now, because I'm hearing being referred to all kinds of reference being made to this thing, even at times animals and all kinds of. One of the time I even heard about horse racing and a human being being referred to as an animal and being treated likewise. What I see now is even worse, because this never happened back then, but it is happening now, where a human being is being denied access to clean water, where people are running sewage, running pipe and putting under up running underground pipes and putting tanks, water tanks underground, and and filling it up with polluted water to run in somebody's home, somebody who already has clean water. They are going to replace the person's clean water with polluted water for the person to use, and this is against the person's will, without the person's knowledge, and without the person's permission. These are acts of slavery. These are inhumane treatment that is being meted out to a human being. This is what our forefathers fought against. These activities are what our forefathers, some of our forefathers lost their lives to fight against, to buy back freedom for people, so that we can enjoy, with the hope that we can enjoy freedom today, with the hope that we can be treated as human beings and with respect and with dignity. Today somebody is releasing a set up equipment in somebody's home to release stench. No, we all know that for something to be, for stench to happen, it has to be, there has to be the presence of bacteria, because bacteria is what breaks down whatever particle and causes it to, and causes the stench, the thing to, and that is being, this bacteria is being, causing stench, is being released in somebody's home. Somebody do not have clean water in their home because somebody deliberately replaced the clean water with polluted water. It is not that it is something that is within the area. The person all had clean water in their home. Somebody, without their knowledge, without their permission, run the pipe, put, place unpolluted water in the person's home, in the underground, and have it running in their home. What's worse, a woman is being tortured, a woman is being raped, tortured daily and raped daily, and being ill treated, being subjected to inhumane conditions. Even the food that she's eating, they contaminate it. Back then, they are what used to happen back then in the days of slavery. The women, when they cook for for their owners, who their employers, who they work for, their slave owners, they would serve them and they would eat at the table, but they themselves would have to eat in the kitchen after everybody has eaten. And sometimes they don't get the same food, but they would have their own food, a different set of food, of course, probably less expensive, less quality, the quality a lower standard. But I'm certain it was not polluted, because they themselves would have prepared it. And the slave owners back then did not contaminate the food that they were giving them to eat. They were allowed to eat. They did not go as far as contaminate the food that the slaves back then, because I guess they needed the energy, because they needed to work, and they needed to ensure that they had the energy, they were eating properly, and they had the energy to do their work. And some of them had the opportunity to go home after work, and so therefore when they went home, they would not have no form of they would not have contaminated food going home to eat, and they would have access to clean water when they went home. At their slave owners home, they would have been subjected to outside toilet, to external toilet. And but I'm certain they did not deny them clean water access. They did not deny them access to clean water. So this form of slavery is even worse than the one that they had back then. And this is slavery. This is high form of slavery. Everybody is ignoring it. Some are participating in it and thinking and taking it lightly, and not seeing how significant this, how detrimental this is. If this is allowed to happen, how detrimental it is for our future, because it is taking us right back where we're coming from. And worst, this also invades the privacy of a person, denies a person complete access to privacy. They are into everything that the person does. The person has no privacy at all. This is worse than back then, because back then, while the persons, the slaves were at work, or at their owners work, I mean, they would supervise them and look in to see what they were doing. They supervise them at different points. But at least some of them who went home, when they went home, they were left. Their privacy was not invaded when they at their home. And if they stayed in, they lived in, they would have their quarters that they would go to. That I'm sure that their slave owners would only go there to call them, to tell them to come in if they needed them outside of their working hours. But this thing is denying a person their rights to privacy. This is so serious. This is so serious. If we cannot be talking about reparations for slavery and wanting to be paid for injustices that were being meted out to us, if we ourselves are perpetrating the same thing, and we are accommodating it, and we are facilitating it, and we are encouraging it, and and participate in it? You cannot participate in something that you are thinking that an injustice was done to you, and you need to be paid for, and you need payment for it. If you think that it was wrong then, why are you doing it now and doing worse? If you think that what was done to your forefathers back then was so bad that it affects you, how many years later it is affecting you, that you want payment for it, what do you think will happen years later if you allow this to continue? What do you think will happen later to your generation down the line, your future generation? How do you think that it will impact them? The effects of slavery has still have not been completely erased. There are programs are still being instituted to correct, to try to correct the effects, the mindset, the all the attitude adjustments, all the all everything that has been embedded in persons as a result of slavery, and all the behaviors that has resulted from it. There are programs that are being there, the inequality, the inequity that exists as a result of it. There are persons and there are programs that are in that are still being put in place to correct those. And so, if we are still suffering the effects and still paying for the effects of slavery, then it is something that you would make every effort to eradicate any root, any root, any root of it, or any signs of it arising. It is happening, and it should not be ignored. This is something that should be taken seriously. Nobody at no point in time, not in today's 21st century, has any right to be imposing anything on anybody against their will. Everybody have a right to make a decision for their lives. Nobody have no right at all to be denying a person access to clean water. Nobody have no right at all to be removing privacy, complete privacy from no from an innocent person. Nobody have no right at all to be invading their privacy. Nobody has no right at all to be torturing. Nobody at all. Everybody, we have human rights to protect us from all these things. We have human rights set up in place that should be. And if it is that our technology today is bringing us into a place, or the phase where these things, these maladies, these criminal activities can be happening over cyberspace, then regulations need to be put in place. They need to put laws in place to protect people against it. Laws have to be put in place to protect people against this. This is slavery. This is slavery that is still happening today. And it is worse now than it was then. This now is not whites against black, but it's black being black against black. And it has the potential to spread and get even worse, because when black start ill treating black, and this whole nonsense right now, we're still fighting. I heard we still have the white supremacy group going on, and if they get a hold of this and get involved in this, and and they have power and the money to escalate this and use it to their advantage to carry out this is serious. This is a serious thing that should be eradicated and should be treated seriously, and steps should be taken to ensure to stop it, to terminate it, to abolish it, as the human rights article states, that slavery is abolished, and in all its form. Slavery should be abolished in is abolished in all its forms. This is a form of slavery with the use of technology, and should be abolished. We cannot be talking about reparations. We cannot be talking about making apology. We cannot be talking about wanting to correct something that we ourselves are doing, that we ourselves are perpetrating. We cannot be talking about we want payment and we want justice and we want all for something that we are perpetrating against each other, against our fellow. What do you think? It just stop to think. If back then, just think about what is happening now, and if it was what was happening then was not as bad as what is happening now, and if it had so the effect was so detrimental that it passed down through generations, and it costs persons lives, it costs person their freedom, it costs anarchy and all kinds of fighting and demonstrations and that kind of thing to get people to be free. We can't allow this to take us back where we're coming from, and to take us worse than where we're coming from. I am appalled that so many people are buying into it, and I don't hear nobody speaking against it. I don't think people are looking in to see and comparing what is happening now to what was happening then, and realize that it is slavery. And they are not treating it seriously. It's the same way back then. Back in slavery days, when you read slavery, you hear it was the black men who sell out their fellow black men for money to the whites to get some money, to get a few dollars in their pockets. And that is how, and that was how the tribe, the slave industry thrived. because the black man sell out their fellow black men for money. They sold them for sold them for money. The same way a lot of people now you are ignoring it affects. And what I find to be, or what amazed me about it, is that this was practiced in another country before now. This was being practiced in another country, and the effects of it in that country was so detrimental. The results of it was detrimental. Why wasn't I can't understand why it wasn't stopped. Why is it accepted? Why is it being why is it being why is it being supported? It is ushering back slavery. It's ushering back slavery. And it's something that needs to be treated seriously and curtailed. And those who are not seeing it need to read Never Paid Attention in History in their history class. Because those who paid attention in their history class can, or I would want to challenge those who don't think that, to read upon slavery, read upon what took place, or watch TV. For those who don't want to read or can't read, just watch TV, because they have some. Look at The Help, look at Color Purple, look at some of those all those shows that talked about slavery. Look at and read up on the internet, Google slavery in different countries, and see what happened back then. Look at their history back then, and look at what is happening then. Look at what is happening now. The same thing, only it is now remote. It is now electronics rather than the physical thing. And it need to, it has no place. Right. It need to stop. It need to stop, and it need to be treated seriously. We're talking about this is a world thing. This is a world thing. This is being perpetrated through the generations. Where it, and what's worse, you have young children in it being being taught that this is how you treat, this is how you treat a female, this is how you treat a person. They are young people who are perpetrating these crimes at the moment. Now, if they are taught this, if they are being taught this, then what do you think they are going to teach their generations down the road? We have to understand that we have a responsibility. Condemn white supremacy, right? We have a responsibility. One of the reasons that the generations or generations or behavior, we act in with mannerable behavior and we learn values, is because we saw our grandparents did it. We saw our parents did it. They act in mannerable. They had manners. I mean, the whole community. This it was modeled before us by our community and our parents and grandparents. Now, this is what is being modeled. These behaviors now are being modeled publicly before these children. And so they are going to learn that this is the norm, and this is what's gonna be passed down through the generations. This is serious. This is a serious matter. I am trying to communicate the seriousness of it, and people are blinded by it, or and not realizing how serious it is and how urgently they need to step in and fight it and stop it. This is a serious matter and not to be taken lightly. Check, read up on how slavery started back then, what happened in slavery, and look at what is going on now. Just change hands, not the whites and the blacks anymore, black and black. And instead of the whip, you have the gadget, inflicting somebody with pain daily, torturing an innocent person daily with pain, imposing their wishes on somebody, their own will on somebody, and denying a person the right to choose. People are what the Riley family, the family who is doing it right now, they're not working. So you have the men, and it's the men sitting at home. They are the main perpetrators, sitting at home, abusing a female, lashing, abusing, torturing a female for money. What are we teaching? And today, back then, the men were taken out of the homes, and they were placed on plantations away from their families. And so they did not learn responsibility. And so these men, after post slavery, they are not not responsible. As soon as some of them don't want to make commitment or afraid of making commitment to their partners. As soon as the children come, their girlfriend or wife have children, they leave the home because they're afraid of being a father. They don't know how to be a father. Some of them, they're not working, a lot of them not working because they were not taught how, responsibility, how to work. And some of them don't want to work because and they are dependent on somebody else to take care of them. And the same thing that this is doing, you have a 19-year-old boy who has never worked in all his life and don't want to work and want to become a criminal. You have a child, this thing is it prevents children from going to school, because I know of a 15-year-old child who was forced to be involved in it while the child was sitting her final exams to leave to leave high school, and they forced this on her, gave it to her, and the child did not want to wanted to postpone her final exams to engage in this and to say that she would have gotten back to school at another point, at other point in time. There are other children, I'm sure, that that I know of don't want to go to school or are not participating in school because of it. So the illiteracy, so it fosters and ushers back illiteracy that was there back in the day. So the men who are lazy and irresponsible and can't stand up to responsibility or accept or take care of their responsibility because they don't want to work and all they want to do is sit around and play and be lazy. It's the same thing it's fostering. The illiteracy is fostering. The woman torturing women and the woman slaving and doing and making and making money and providing for the same. It's fostering, it's ushering that back in the same effects of slavery back then. The tools may be different, but the effects, the results would be the same. This is not a game, people. This is not to be taken lightly. This is not to be disregarded. It is not funny. It is not to be participated in. It is supposed to be eradicated because it is creating the same problems that we are trying to correct right now. We can't use it to pay reparation or to correct slavery because it is slavery that is creating the same problems and will create worse problems that will need to be corrected and need to be paid for later on. The difference is that the black man won't be able to afford to pay the black man for the injustices that is being meted out to them for it. This is serious and take it seriously. Please, somebody, I am asking, I hope somebody with power and with authority will hear this, take it seriously, and take the necessary actions to 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 shut it down before it gets any worse. This doesn't have to happen. None of this does not have to happen at all. Because whatever this I heard it is whatever is being done. I heard it is for some fundraising to get money or to whatever. It does not have no direct impact on nothing that it is slated to achieve. It has no direct impact. So all the activities in it can change because all the activities has been changing. Only it has gotten worse instead of better. And the worse it gets, the worse problem it will create. So because I heard people talking about it can get worse. If it gets worse, it will create worse outcomes. It can only create worse outcome if it get worse. It will only get worse. The country will only get worse. Look at the country that it happened in. It was not this worse. And look at the effects of the country that it happened in. What do you think that will happen now if it gets worse? You're not hurting. It's not just the person you're hurting everybody because it has been happening. A generation is being taught that this is how people are treated. A generation is being taught that this is how women is supposed to be treated. A generation is being taught that they can torture a person for money in order to get money. A man is being taught that him don't, and a child is being taught that he doesn't have to go to work, he doesn't have to go to school. He can get a electronic gadget, get the get something and torture somebody to get money. Wise up people, use wisdom, stop this thing. It is slavery and it needs to be shut down totally. Stop the nonsense. Inflicting somebody's knee with pain. Don't stop another person's knee from hurting. Inflicting somebody's hip with pain. Don't stop another person's hip from hurting. It's generation down, it's generation. You're talking about when a person get old. No matter how much pain you inflict somebody with, when they get old, their hip is gonna hurt. Their knee is gonna hurt. It's something that wears out over time. No matter how you inflict a person with pain now, that won't stop it from her from them from being affected later on. It's how the body is set up. Those are wear and tear that will happen. No amount of surgery will stop it, because that was what was being discussed. That surgery don't take away the pain. It may give you the ability, the strength to walk a bit more, but it doesn't take away the pain. Remove it. Taking away a person's life from them, don't give another person life. Stop the foolishness. Wisdom, God give you wisdom, use it. When King Solomon was king, and when he got to be king, and God asked him what he needed, what he needed, and he asked God for wisdom, and God said, because you asked for wisdom to lead the people, and God gave him wisdom, and he was not only the wisest king, he was also the richest king, because he used his wisdom and he was able to accumulate riches and all of that with wisdom, not with wickedness, not with power. He did not ask for power to oppress the people. He did not ask to be cruel, to cause them to be afraid of him, or to inflict fear upon them. He asked for wisdom so that he could lead them. Violence does not get violence does not get it. This is terrorism. This is terrorism. Same ISIS we're talking about, but this is in the form of slavery, because it takes away somebody's right to their lives. And it should be treated as such, and stop the foolishness. And you're talking about this can help cancer and cure all of that. This cannot cure nothing. This will never cure anything. This is a fundraising. This is what you're talking is calling it a fundraising event. It has no direct impact on cancer, because you could do, as somebody else, do a concert and get more money than what is being collected, and give it to people with cancer. It doesn't have to. This activity, none of this don't have to take place at all. This is irrelevant. This is not necessary. It is unnecessary. You go, you take it away today, you don't miss anything. You just use another fundraising event to replace it, and it is and you have better outcome. A fundraiser that don't impact nobody's life negatively, that don't take away negatively, that don't have these negative outcomes. All it is a fundraiser, nothing else, because it has no direct impact on nothing that is slated to achieve. You can't do anything else. And I heard the worse. Why the hell would you make it any worse? You want to make the country worse? Where is it turning the needle? Is it turning the needle backwards or forward? When you look at the effects of the country that it was practiced, you saw that it turned the needle backwards instead of forward. Why would you do it here? Why would you be doing it now? Why not doing it, allowing it? Why would anybody allow it or participate in it? I hope somebody will hear and somebody will stop it before it's too late.